to The Hypnotist, the show that gives you inside access to cutting-edge hypnosis with real clients facing genuine issues. Brought to you by the hypnotherapist demanded by celebrities, CEOs, and even royalty, Adam Cox. These recordings took place live from Adam's clinic in London's world-famous Harley Street. So, get yourself comfortable and enjoy today's episode of The Hypnotist.
Hi, it's Adam here. Now, I'm going to ask you a question, and I really want you to think about it first. Do you tend to avoid conflict? You avoid having difficult conversations? You avoid wanting to let someone down? Or if there's a decision which definitely someone isn't going to like, you just delay making that decision? If so, I think you're going to get some value from this, because it was created, this particular hypnosis session, for a client that was very, very successful. And I would say of all the clients that I've worked with, the personal level of focus and determination, probably up there with the highest I've ever worked with, has been able to accomplish incredible things individually in terms of, let's say, health, fitness, business. Very, very capable person. And yet, interpersonally, their desire to consider other people too much and to avoid conflict actually in certain cases was making things worse, because it meant that they were being inconsistent, flip-flopping, backtracking. Those kind of things weren't really working for them. So there is a timeline structure to this hypnosis session where they go back to a time where they had what they considered the highest level of personal resolve, where they were doing an Ironman triathlon. Now, if you've ever heard of this, it's one of the most extreme things that you can do. It's swimming, cycling for kilometers and kilometers, and then kind of ending. I think it ends with a marathon after you've done all of these things. It's an intense thing. And they knew that they'd prepared, and they knew they had the psychological and emotional resolve to do that. So it harnesses that and then says, right, where did they not quite get it right? A memory where their willingness to avoid conflict actually caused a bigger problem than if they would have just been resolute right from the start. So they get to see it as it was, see it as they would want it to be, live it the way they would want it to be, with two key things: that feeling of being resolute, having that personal resolve, but also introducing clear boundaries. You can't hold the line if you don't know what the line is. And therefore, communication is such an important part of this. But if someone violates something you've clearly communicated, that doesn't necessarily mean malicious intent. It could just be a lack of thinking. It could be habitual. It could be, just kind of a misunderstanding. So giving people chances, if something's really important to you and they just violate that, if the intention is kind of good or just like not malicious, that's a good reason to do that. But then having clear consequences, if something gets violated again and again, is such an important element of boundary setting, because one of my fundamental beliefs is that you get what you tolerate, not what you deserve. And therefore, if there's never a consequence, then effectively you have no boundaries, and then the boundaries get reduced and reduced until there's nothing left of you. So boundaries are non-negotiables. They are not optional. Everyone needs boundaries, but not everyone is going to like or respect your boundaries. And if they don't respect your boundaries, then you get to have consequences, and consequences might be you spend less time with them, or you communicate in a different way, or whatever it might be. This idea of you cut people out of your life is quite an extreme consequence, but it is a consequence. It's on the table. It's an option, even if it's the nuclear option. So it introduces that, and then future paces to a situation that hasn't happened yet, but they knew that difficult conversations may be required, but the preparation stage of having communication in these key areas in advance would mitigate and reduce a lot of those potential issues. So I want you to think of something in your life where Boundaries are necessary. Difficult conversations either have happened or could happen, and you want to feel absolutely resolute, full of resolve, that you will say what needs to be said, do what needs to be done, even if it means ruffling a few feathers every now and then, so that you have the kind of dynamics that kind of work for you. Now, consideration is a two-way street. If you're expecting everyone else to abide by your boundaries, but you disregard other people's boundaries, that doesn't make you considerate. That makes you a tyrant. So again, what's good for the goose is good for the gander. If you're expecting other people to respect you, make sure you respect other people as well. Then it's balanced. But if you're doing lots of respect, if you're being very considerate and that doesn't go back to you, boundaries are probably very useful. And if you've been avoiding conflict and difficult conversations as a reason not to introduce those boundaries, this session I think is going to be very useful. Now, it was created for an individual client. I would say it's statistically unlikely that you've done an Ironman and therefore you can't go back to that memory to harness the time when you had resolve in the highest abundance for you. But you will have a different memory. You will have a memory where you were at your highest level of feeling resolute, in which case ignore the memory of an Ironman and kind of, let's say, swimming and cycling and running, and go back to your memory. And if you do like the idea of having a bespoke session working directly with me, look in the description. There's a few things that you can do there to either take a suitability test or watch a webinar about working with me, and that will show you exactly what to do to make it possible to work with me one-on-one rather than just listening to recordings. But for now, you might get some real value from this session. So find a quiet, comfortable place where you won't be distracted or disturbed. Relax and enjoy the session. Take a deep breath in, and as you breathe in that resourceful feeling of calm and relaxation. And as you exhale, just allow your eyelids to close. And as they close, just feel that release. A release of any tension, any stress, any worries, slowly, incrementally, being released and leaving your body every outward breath. That's it. And when you breathe in deeper than you normally would. And as you exhale, just allow that outward breath to continue until there's nothing left. Diaphragm empty. Noticing the vacuum you create facilitates the next deeper breath. And the deeper you breathe, the more relaxed you feel. And the more relaxed you feel, the deeper you breathe. As your body relaxes, your imagination awakens. And I want you to imagine floating back in time and seeing a time of absolute resolve. Float back to that moment and see you back then. That as a result of all of that preparation, there was unshakable certainty. that you had the qualities required to do something challenging. I want you to see that version of you, perhaps at the starting line, under no illusion as to the size of the challenge, but also under no illusion that your capabilities, your resources exceeded the demand ahead. And I want you to mimic subtle things in that version of you. Mimic the facial expression that version of you with pure resolve has. Breathe the way they're breathing. Maybe they're loose and relaxed. Maybe they're prepared and focused. And just adjust your body. A game of mimicry. All children played it a few times. And notice that when you start to breathe the way they breathe, and feel the way they feel, you can feel more of that resolve starting to awaken within you. And then imagine stepping into that version of you, abundant, steadfast, determined, oozing pure resolve. And imagine the challenge begins. Maybe you can connect with that feeling of invigoration. You can recall that inner dialogue. You were aware of all of that preparation, paying dividends later. But had you not prepared in the way that you prepared, the challenge would be more challenging. And I want you to think back to that preparation. There were times that you didn't feel like training, but you did anyway. And I want you to connect with an essence, a mantra, or a belief. Fuck your mood. Follow the plan. And while you're in that memory, getting all the benefits of all the preparation because you followed a plan, I want you to notice that it didn't need to be easy for you to hold the line. In fact, the very point that you were doing it is that it wasn't easy. I want you to connect to that essence that when it got challenging, that enriched and added to the experience rather than took something away. And maybe it was a wave, tightness in a tendon or a muscle. Maybe it was a bruise or a knock. Go forwards in time, and maybe it was the weather or the wind. Maybe it was fatigue or exhaustion. But I want you to imagine resolve as almost a flame within. But so long as that flame is burning, you will continue. And maybe there were times that flame was challenged. And you just needed to focus on the very next goal, the next station, the next kilometer. I want you to tap into that ethos and make that flame brighter. Notice the location of where that personal resolve exists within you. And hone into the essence of what makes resolve. It's the fact that it's challenged. You don't need resolve when everything is easy. You don't need resolve when there's no tough decisions, no adversity, no problems. That's the point. You only need it when things get tough. To make that flame brighter. Notice how you're breathing. Notice the tonality of that inner dialogue when you have that resolve. And then imagine you're running now. One step at a time, 1 kilometer at a time. Knowing that what's ahead is not easy. But it becomes easier to focus on the short term that collectively would get you to the long term. And what if this long challenge has always been a metaphor for other challenges in your life? A business, a family. These are not 3 to 5 year goals. These are longer goals that can span over decades. And that endurance, that stamina, that long-term focus can easily be mapped across to these different, longer time horizon goals. And you don't have to be aware of every variable to be prepared. Just to know that you have the ability to make decisions and hold the line linked to whatever is actually there. Beyond the finishing line, I want you to imagine there is a childhood cinema that you can recall. Shouldn't be there, but it is. And I want you to imagine walking into that cinema with that sense of pride and accomplishment at what you've achieved, and starting to see a memory of a time where you didn't have that same resolve in an interpersonal situation. On that big screen in the cinema, I want you to recall a memory where you were inconsistent, flip-flopping, backtracking. You couldn't hold the line because you didn't know what the line was. The line kept being redrawn in different places. Uncertain for you, uncertain for others. And I want you to watch that memory as if you're a character there on the screen. But see it as it was. Not better, not worse, as it was. and you can condense time. What may have taken place over weeks or months could take place in minutes. Your brain already knows how to synthesize the most important parts of that memory, like a montage. And I want you to observe how that inconsistent version of you made things worse and not better. That even though the intention was good, the consequence made things messy, difficult, perhaps created an emotional rug pull of uncertainty for others. And I want you to extract all of the wisdom from that memory. You're older now, and when you think back to a memory, particularly when you see yourself as someone else, you get that level of objectivity that extracts even more wisdom than you could do living it. And I want you to imagine when you've seen that memory, think with the benefit of hindsight what you would do differently if you had that same personal resolve in this interpersonal situation. Things like clarity, a feeling of resoluteness, that determination to hold the line, come what may. So rewind it and see the memory starting with a different facial expression. There is a stoic resolve in this version of you. So play the memory forward the way you would do if there was no fear of conflict, a desire to make the best decision based on real facts, not wishing it was different, but playing the cards you've been dealt. And I want you to see that expression of being resolute, the mental decisiveness, the inner courage to hold the line. And maybe with the benefit of hindsight, you could go back even further and maybe there was an opportunity to communicate something that was never communicated before the problem arose. How can someone hold a line, including yourself, if you don't know what the line is? To see that strong, confident version of you communicating, and not just communicating, but communicating in such a way where the understanding has been verified. And then imagine that even with that communication, certain things aren't working. And I want you to imagine seeing that resolute version of you deciding to give someone a chance or to give someone a consequence. Because sometimes if a rule, an expectation, a boundary is crossed, sometimes it's not malicious, it's just unintentional, habitual, a misunderstanding. But what if that first chance eliminates all of those misunderstandings? You communicate the line. You highlight that the line has been crossed. You can say what consequences you're keen to avoid, and then at your discretion, you give the chance. But then if that chance has been received, understood, and yet history repeats, now any lack of consequence, or a consequence that seems uncertain, will be perceived as weakness. A country that have laws that aren't enforced becomes lawless. A relationship where agreements are broken loses respect and love quickly. And I want you to imagine seeing that version of you up on that screen, handling that situation where you're clearly communicating and you are resolute in your consequences. And I want you to see that that version of you is not stubborn, not headstrong, but steadfast. And the only circumstances that things would change is if something has materially changed. That might be a level of accountability. That might be evidence. It might be something else. And even then, I want you to see that version of you, that even if facts have changed, that nature to believe in people, to hope for the best, that impulse moment is reflected upon, carefully considered. And even if it's agreed, it becomes conditional, not a flip-flop, not a backtrack, but a new agreement, clearly communicated, with consequences clearly communicated, stated in, if X then Y. There is clarity, but only if, after careful consideration, it makes sense to do that. Many people perceive an act of kindness to be an act of weakness. Too much consideration, too much kindness just means respect goes down, not up. And when you've seen that memory the way you would want it to be, with these qualities and this way of making a strong decision, when you see yourself holding the line, let me know by nodding your head. And then rewind it to the beginning, step into the screen, and then feel what it would feel like from that first person perspective to do things the way you would have wanted to have done. If that same level of personal resolve was there in interpersonal situations, holding on to the rule that if it feels like you're afraid of a conversation, then you must have that conversation. That when you communicate things clearly, you've now communicated the line. if the line gets crossed, that's either a chance or a consequence. And intent is important there. If someone disrespectfully, defiantly crosses the line clearly communicated, there's no need for a chance, because the intent is malicious. If, however, the intention is good, but the line gets crossed, it's a wonderful opportunity for a chance. But if the intention is good and the line continues to be crossed, the consequence is inevitable. Not because you're being unfair, but because it simply can't be this way going forward. When people show you who they are, accept it, believe it, knowing that they can also change in the future if they desire. And once you've lived that memory the way you would want it to be, leave the screen and then imagine seeing no longer a memory on that screen, but the future. And let's call this future preparation. I want you to imagine the next 3 to 5 years as a wonderful opportunity to clearly communicate your wishes, your fears, your hopes and dreams, but your worries, your insecurities. And I want you to see how much lack of surprises there is when that version of you oozing confidence, oozing a sense of resolve and courage, feels liberated to communicate anything and everything that's important as part of preparation. So much so that when the time finally comes, there is no confusion, no ambiguities, no uncertainty. There is simply clarity. If someone could shrug their shoulders and say, "But I didn't know," then there was insufficient preparation. Either that or it's a lie. I want you to see doing whatever preparation would reduce the probability of your biggest fears, future feelings of disconnection, future conflict, a lack of inclusiveness or consideration. I want you to see that conversations, hypothetical scenarios, are giving you everything you need to lay the foundations to build something strong. And you might find that those key elements of inclusiveness, consideration and respect, you get to see situations and scenarios in real life that don't directly affect your family yet, but you treat them like test cases. It could be a niece or a nephew. It could be a different person entirely. And if you observe things that would cross the line if they link to your family, then rather than feeling burdened or conflicted, what if that is the ideal opportunity to have the conversation when it's less personal, so that the lines are clear way in advance before it is personal? I want you to give permission to your future self to communicate clearly and to feel empowered to have consequences if they're necessary. Not because you want them, but because the fear of any consequences increases the probability of the very conflict you're keen to avoid. Imagine leaving that cinema with a sense of you are primed to harness resolve in any interpersonal situations and allow yourself to float back to the present, taking a deep breath in through your nose and out through your nose. Wiggle your fingers, wiggle your toes as I count from 1 to 10 to awaken you. 1, 2, 3, waking up. 4, 5, 6, more alert. 7, 8, open your eyes, open your eyes. 9, 10, wide awake, wide awake, wide awake. Thank you so much for joining me on today's episode of The Hypnotist. If you've enjoyed this episode or got some value from it, please give it a 5-star rating and review. And maybe you know someone that would also benefit from this particular episode, in which case share the episode with them so they can also get the benefit too. And if you would like to listen to this episode where it's just the hypnosis, so no intro, no outro, no explanation, just the hypnosis and completely ad-free, there will be a link in the description where you can subscribe at a very low cost and only get access to the hypnosis. So if that's of interest, please check that out. Thank you again for being a regular listener of The Hypnotist, and I'll see you again soon for more.